everybody. I'm Luxcana, and thank you all for coming on today. We have quite the special guest today. We have the runner-up from Seattle DLC. Do you want to introduce yourself?
Hey everyone, I'm Shawn Leung. I played Steel Song at the Seattle DLC, and I got second place.
And then we also have two members of Team Lux. You guys want to introduce yourselves?
Hey guys, this is Ursula here. I just wanted to step in as a Steel Song expert, so I just want to see how Sean's weekend went through.
Hi, I'm Ducky.
And we
With
have.
Steel.
That's awesome. Okay, let's get started and see the deck profile. So I can just click through the pictures if you want, just to highlight them, and then we can stop and talk about them whenever you guys want, okay?
Sure.
Okay, so we'll start with Cinderella, Ballroom Sensation.
For Cinderella, I think she's a must. Um, I don't know how much I would want to hammer it. I think everybody else hammers it. She's a must-have. Great card, costs one, sets up your board state for a lot of tempo gaining potential. But yeah, I'll leave it over there. I think there's just too much to say about her.
I know, I always make sure I try to befuddle her whenever I'm playing. Okay, and then we also have three Daisy Ducks.
Daisy Ducks. I really enjoyed Daisy Duck. I played with 2, played with 4, played with 3. There was a point when I was dropping down to 2, but I really missed 3. I think Old Habits Die Hard. I think so. For Chris, I practiced his list from the previous list, and I just really stuck with 3. I tried playing 2, and I'm like, it's missing something. So honestly, there's not too much for me to say why there's 3. It's just Old Habits Die Hard. She's a great card. Double-edged sword at times, but honestly, you kind of need to utilize her in a way where one way I kind of view it is deciding when to start the timer. Your opponent, depending on their deck list, might potentially get more fuel, more resources, but you need to kind of consider if they get those resources, what's their game? If they don't, great. But you kind of need to consider if the timer does start, what's their out? And it's not always blindly just turning sideways, questing, when you're not sure how your opponent is going to react.
So I have a couple. Sorry.
Oh, go ahead.
Questions. With Daisy, does it simply stay on the board doing nothing, just to be a board presence?
Honestly, yeah, a good amount of the time. She becomes a great sponge for Rapunzel. She's a 1/4. Yes, questing for 2 sounds great. But at the end of the day, she does cost 1, so you could kind of view her as a vanilla card. So it's kind of about expanding different cards as use case. And I think that's what I really like about Steel Song. I played with my friend recently, and he's like, what do I pick? What do I do? And I think the fact that he questions that shows how much I really enjoy the deck. It's very multi-dimensional. And Daisy Duck, she's a card with many use cases.
And when do you want to play Daisy?
For me, there's different reasons. Either maybe I don't have a 1-drop and I just need it. 2, I'm really going to start the clock. So let's say I just wheeled, I have all this ink, I'm gonna play out all the daisies, I have another wheel ready, I'm gonna start the clock. The clock might not even matter anymore, knowing I'm gonna wheel away your resource. So maybe I'm not using the right word for clock, but I think that's how I approach using Daisy.
So, Daisy's unthinkable, right? So, if you have, there's an opportunity cost for uninkable. So, what are you cutting for Daisy Ducks? What could you be playing instead of Daisy Ducks if you had the option to?
You know, this will probably be answered down the line. I kind of wrestled more with wanting a big Cindy. It's in my list. I'm running 3 Lawrences. I missed the 4th Lawrence. Bare Necessities, surprisingly, kind of underperformed for me. Um, and I think Naveen surprisingly underperformed for me. Running two. And I do like them. I feel like I would run one just to test it out. But my mind's kind of set on just relaxing right now, preparing for sets.
Cool.
Eh,
So you're mostly just looking at trying to lower the unequal count if you were to play, maybe like less daisies or something like that.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Also, does the number of daisies change if you're going into best of two versus best of three format? Because I know that different approaches can be taken if you're going into best of two versus best of three.
I didn't really think too much about that. I don't think she's probably as detrimental as maybe another card. I think it might be a bias. I spent the entire time playing on the draw.
Wow.
Ursula overperformed. Daisy was not on the radar at all, either on the draw or on the.
Okay. And then now,
and,
oh, go ahead. Sorry, Chris.
and Shawn, I actually came to the same conclusion. Naveen has also underperformed, and I also bear necessity as well. I think it's not really necessary moving forward with Steel Song.
Gotcha. Yeah, I'm like, two is great. I could rip out a quill, I could stop beat prep, but I found myself foregoing a lot of that. So I definitely need to kind of test around with it with some friends. But it's too soon for me to just make a hard conclusion with set six.
Okay, and then we have 4 of the queen, this baby queen.
Yes, the queen. I do feel that for set 5, queen is where it's at. Just because I played a whole bunch of times against blue-red with my friends. The queen, or compared to Robin Hood gets to the point where you're just playing him for 2 lore or just to sing something. That's it. And he costs 5. So he's either getting removed and you're not getting the draw, unless surprisingly they're gonna run Maui into him. Or you're really just going for 2 lore. The queen is a much safer pick in that case. She cannot get ice blocked, comboed into removal. She shifts for 2. She still quests for 2. If anything, when it comes to locations, she gives that extra oomph. So against like red blue for sure, and this kind of touches on other decks that runs on locations. She's definitely performed better for me. I will say that she's not really beginner friendly, or it takes time to adapt to her, especially when a lot of people might be used to Robin Hood. I guess in comparison, Robin Hood takes up potentially a 3-drop slot, and I think it's very saturated. My friend we swapped decks yesterday, and he did not know what to play on turn 3. If you were to add Robin Hood into the mix, I think he might be overstimulated, overwhelmed. And there's a lot of other cards you can play on turn. But we'll get to that.
Okay, thank you. And then we have Ursula Vanessa, which you said overperformed.
Yeah, she is great. I think, unless I'm going against red blue, she's great. She sets you up for success. She's very beefy. She could be a sponge for Rapunzel. If you were to say you're gonna play an Ariel on turn 3, you could find a song, play the song instantly with Ursula Vanessa. If I'm in the mirror match, she's very beefy. She's probably going to stick.
Awesome. And then we have Mr. Smee.
Mr. Smee, I think in this archetype, or where the meta is at right now, I think he's a must.
Yeah, definitely. I see a lot of lists playing it.
Quest is for 2, beefy 3/3. It's okay if he takes a tick of damage most of the time. You got Rapunzel. It's not too much to say. I think he's just a very strong staple.
Is there ever a time where you just let Mr. Smee die instead of healing it with Rapunzel? Or maybe you heal like something else? Or are you trying to always heal Mr. Smee?
No, that's a really good question. I have found myself in that situation.
Hmm.
I am to share a bit, I am a research analyst.
Ooh,
So I look
okay.
at numbers, but I'm not as nitty gritty. I kind of get the general idea and understand what's more likely to happen or not.
Hmm.
Um, so if I'm in a situation where should I heal the Smee to draw two or one, or
The
should I go
Lawrence.
for swinging Lawrence and heal for three? I want to count how many cards have I gone through. How many cards are in my discard? How many cards are in my ink? On my character board section, on my hand, in my hand, and think about how likely am I going to find a whole new world if that's my out. Um, I think Frank Karsten wrote a very great article. I tested the hypergeometric calculator. Um, I think if you started off with 7 cards, none of them were a whole new world, and you drew about 12 cards, 12, 13 cards, so going through the top 20 cards, and this counts Ariel's, searching cards and sending it to the bottom. I think it's around 75% chance to find a whole new world, at least one. Um, so I kind of take that math into consideration and decide when am I digging or when is the two lore more important, especially when I consider the opponent's board state.
So I have a few questions.
Hmm.
Since you referenced Frank Karsten's article, do you keep a whole new world in opening hand?
I usually don't going second. Recently, going against a lot of red purple, found myself taking board, then burning out. No matter how much I draw with Rapunzel, there's times when I'm just not finding it.
Hmm.
Um, I think one time I went through like 40 cards, and I think this one stuck with me. I just did not find a whole new world. I was playtesting with a friend. Sometimes I go through 30 cards, I don't find it. But with Gaston, card coming up later on, he lets me hold a whole new world without needing the combo pieces of Queen. So I kind of found that really nice, really good, especially in the top 64 match.
Second question, do you keep Rapunzel and Smee on the play?
On the play, on the draw, is it blind?
Yes.
Uh, I will say on the play, there's times when I don't, when I for sure know I have an Ursula. I'm counting how many cards I'm sending back into the deck, um, and considering my uninkability or uninkable count. Um, there's a time when I might keep him. Um, Rapunzel, I tend to value more on the play. Um, on the draw, I kind of consider her if I realize I'm sending back a lot of inkable cards, and I might get a lot of uninkable cards, and I might need to play it.
And my final question, did you miss Piglet this weekend?
Um, kind of. I felt like on the play, Piglet is just great against red blue. It's either they have the removal or they don't. Sometimes they also need to, depending how you time it, they kind of need to play awkwardly off curve. Um, on the draw, I kind of found it a bit more frustrating when I would play turn one draw, turn two Piglet, turn three they're red, they're like perfectly on curve, ready to remove Piglet. But
Oh.
like if it's not that point, or if that situation doesn't come up, Piglet's just great. I think for the most part, Piglet is great against red. Um, Against other matches, I find myself only playing him with a either I'm already winning or it's with Pete as a combo piece.
Also, Piglet's a captain, so it prevents me from getting damage.
Yes, I'm a fan of Gold Pirates when he first came out, just for fun. I just wanted to make Gold Pirates when everyone was on Red Steel. So Piglet's great.
I had one question as well too. So if like you were talking about cutting bare necessities, But like that kind of affects your aerial ratios, right? Because we have a saying in luxury, aerial's fake, because it misses a lot, and I feel like you just need to have like a critical mass of songs. So if you compare necessities, are you playing more songs in addition, or are you just going down to 15?
I I would consider World Greatest Criminal Mind. It's really nice when I get to play World's Greatest Criminal Mind with Cindy, especially when the red purple player plays the Flynn Sisu combo. I'm like, hey, I don't have an Ursula, but I do have a Cindy, and she's gonna sing it. So I found myself using that every now and then. But on the topic of lowering my songs, I think it's about viewing the use of Ariel differently. Um, you're using Ariel as a potential like route to find a card. It's not gonna guarantee a card. Don't play as if you are gonna bank on getting the card. Think about your alternative route. The turn 3 is very saturated with other 3 drops. So let's say you don't play Ariel on turn 3. You do have other options. You have Lawrence. Depending on the matchup, you also have P. Um, and you might even have the Queen Shift line open up with a 1-drop. You have a whole new world. Steel Song's very fun to have all those combo pieces together. But I think it's important to view Ariel differently. And I'm not lying, I've had Ariel brick like 4 times in a row. I think I was in the set champs. I think I counted, I played 8 Ariels. In that entire match, I've only had Ariel hit twice.
Wow.
And at that time, I only played 16 songs. I think should have at least hit half of it, but it's important to consider when you don't need Ariel. And maybe consider how many songs have you gone through beforehand, and how many cards are you going through off the top of your deck, to kind of consider your chances of finding a song for Ariel.
Okay. And you still think playing 4 is definitely a must?
I do. Well, maybe it's Old Habits Die Hard, but I think she's just a great card. I really like her. She's my favorite Amber card next to Rapunzel. So there's some bias to it. Yeah.
Okay. And then now we have Baloo.
Baloo. He's a card I did not test him with. I found myself always like at the cusp of beating Red Blue. Either I'm at 19, 18, 16, or even 15 lore. Baloo instantly gives you 2 lore upon death. And sometimes if you don't exert him as a bodyguard, he could get you that extra 1 lore, then you could pop him, get that 2 lore, and he closes the gap. Surprisingly, the bodyguard part is really great, especially with the queen being very vulnerable. I will say, when you're playing from behind, he doesn't feel that great. But
Okay.
for the most part, with Steel Song, you are fighting for board very aggressively in the beginning. So he could, he finds his way back up there, unless you do break. But that's just Steel Song stuff.
Chris, did you like Baloo when you were playing with him as well?
I echo everything Shawn just said.
Okay.
And it's been amazing. It's a great inclusion, with Ruby Sapphire being at least a quarter of a meta.
Because one thing that I've heard from a lot of Steel Song players, just anecdotally, is that Blue seems pretty necessary because like being stalled at 19 is a gigantic problem for this deck. Like it happens, it's because of the nature of the matchup between Ruby Sapphire and Amber Steel, is that you stop at 19 basically, and they have just enough to stop you at 19. So being able to push that extra bit of lore, I've seen people play Sleepy's Flute in this slot as well too. I think Blue's just slightly better because it's just guaranteed, and you don't need a lot of pieces to come together.
Yeah,
And you can also.
Well, go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to say that you could just quest just because it's a questing, instead of playing it right or playing around Medusa, Maui or something, because you always have Baloo to get that 2 additional lore.
I would like to add that even if you play him at like let's say 15 lore, the fact that he's played puts your opponent in a position where they have to think differently now, you're guaranteed 2 lore if they board blank. So I played with a friend, and he kind of needed to change his entire game plan because he thought he could push me up to 18, but now he can't. I'm going to get that extra 2 lore to close out the game. So there is a mental factor to it.
Right. Because the amount of safety that you have and that cushion that you have as a control player just doesn't exist anymore because of blue.
Exactly.
Awesome. And then now we're playing 2 Gaston.
Gaston, I think he overperformed for me actually. I was playing around with Wochuk's list. I always questioned why 4 Gastons? Like, why can't we do like 3 Gastons plus a Naveen or something? Why 4 Gastons? And I tried 2, I wasn't feeling it. And then I realized if I added the queen and she kind of like gets to come out and open up my singers at a lower ink cost than Robin Hood, I'm like, I think I could work with that. So Gaston made me kind of happy where I'm able to just play him on turn 3, turn 4, play Ariel, find a song, instantly cast it with Gaston. If I don't have an Ariel, if I'm on the play, especially against red-purple, I get to keep a whole new world. If I know my hand is easily dumped, I'll dump everything, sing with Gaston with a whole new hand. I could get more songs to sing with Ariel or Cinderella. So it felt great most of the time.
Would you play any more than 2?
I would test out 3 just because I'm not feeling Naveen as much from the event. I'll leave it at 2. I'm open to 3. I'll just say that.
Okay.
It seems to me that Gaston also fills almost like a Cinderella role as well too, like the big Cindy role. Because like in a lot of other lists, I see like Cindy is played in this slot. But is it because like you're missing like the lantern support that you're like not as big of a fan of Big Cindy?
I like the lantern from Brennan DeCamillo. Maybe I wasn't playing it right. I gave it a good week or 2. And I felt like I just burned out really fast. Like you play a turn 1, 1 drop. Turn 2, you play lantern. You play another 1 drop. Turn 3, great. If you have Naveen, you could play him in wheel. But I found myself thinking that I was lacking in having cards to ink. If I went that line, having a lantern, having a Naveen, having a whole new world, that's 3 uninkable cards in hand. And especially if I'm trying to play a 1 drop and another 1 drop on turn 2, I'm gonna need, like, off the top of my head, sorry, like 2 to 3 other inkable cards on top of what I'm already playing. So I felt like I was burning out, but I really like it when I like go up. It has high highs, but it felt like the lows were really low to me. But I would need to revisit it. I think it is a really good deck, and I just need more practice. I don't think there's anything wrong with it. I always think I need to figure it out. DeCanio did really good for a reason. How can I do that well? What's working, what's not working?
Well, he was also in a best of 3 format, and also I think in that spot you can just decline to ink, play the 1 drop and use it as ink instead if your ink's a little bit too tight. Because I know that you can just like fire off the Naveen and just be ahead on the ink in that spot and not actually need the extra 1 drop.
Yeah, for sure. I have done that every now and then. I think that is something I heavily consider. If I do have a Let the Storm Rage on with my turn 1 Cindy, that opens up the chance to get another inkable card in cycle. But yeah, if it does happen, I would just ink and pass. Something similar to, let's say you're playing the mirror, they play a turn 1 Cindy, you're on the draw. And are you gonna take the risk and play your turn 1 Cindy and they might pop it, or you're just gonna ink something, pass, and wait for your turn 2?
Yeah.
That's a good question. What would you do in that instance? You would pass?
I think that happened to me once. I inked pass, but I had a turn 2 Ursula Vanessa ready. And I think another situation was the opponent had, I think in my top 32, top 16 match, the opponent had a turn one Daisy, turn one Cindy. I had a turn one Daisy. She's beefy, um, so that's another good thing about Daisy. Yeah.
Okay, and then now we're moving on to Lawrence. A 4-4, big body.
He is big. He's a thick boy. Cost three, basically a 4/4, great sponge to maximize Rapunzel's value. Um, Sometimes you could just decide either you're going to crash into something, then heal. You could have something sing, damage Lawrence as a sponge, then heal with Rapunzel. You could do a combo with it. Let's say get Lawrence Twing. He takes one damage. You could use a Storm on Lawrence right after. Sing with Rapunzel, heal for three, draw three. I think he's really great. I kind of missed that I didn't run four.
Ooh.
But yeah, there's not too much to say. I think he's just great. He's really good in a lot of matches.
Okay. And then now we have Pete, 4 of them.
Pete, I think he's great. I wouldn't go any lower. I think it is a very simple statement, but yeah, if you don't see the situation, sure, you could ink him, but it's I don't know. He's just really great. He's overperformed in stopping Be Prepared. I think if you count your cards correctly, you could time when you could find him. I think in my top 4 match, I played a bare Necessities. I looked at my opponent's hand, and I ripped out a Be Prepared. I looked at his hand and I saw that maybe he could stomp me out for another turn or two. And I also realized I had a whole new road in my hand too. And I'm like, I'm either going to be doing something really dumb by wheeling and getting him a whole new hand again, and he might get a B prep, or this might be a really good play because I did not ink a Pete yet. I did not see a Pete yet. I've already wheeled, I think, at least once. And we're like, I'm already at like, what, 7, 8 ink that late into the game. I'm sure I could find a Pete. And yeah, he kind of seals the deal in certain matchups or situations.
So now, when would you play Pete for like a gathering knowledge, if you're worried about a gathering knowledge?
A gathering knowledge, that is the 2-cost blue.
Purple. And you
Purple
and you
card.
just gain 2 lore. Or are you not worried about that card at all?
I wasn't necessarily worried about it, but if anything, if I am fighting for board, I am trying to stop your board state, or I guess you from getting 20 lore. I have no problem just slamming him down.
Randomly.
Definitely I consider, yeah, I definitely consider how many units you have on your side of the board, how many cards are in your hand, how fast can you like rise up in lore. I consider that, but for the most part, I'm not too worried unless have to be. Does that make sense?
Okay. Then we have Prince Naveen, which is an underperformer, even though you can sing a song for free when you play him.
I really like Naveen. He just underperformed for me. I wouldn't take him out entirely just because old habits die hard. He's got me out of clutch or I guess situations where I've been backed into the wall. It's been really clutch. One play I remember doing was going wide, and then playing Prince Naveen so I could use Strength of a Raging Fire on
Ooh.
the purple shifted Ursula. Because I'm not sigging, still works. So stuff like that has been great. Sometimes I could play Naveen just to use anything except for a whole new road. For some reason, I don't want him playing a whole new road. It feels like I'm behind when I'm doing
Okay.
that. So if I play Naveen and I play any song to pop something, feels great. If it's a whole new road, I don't know. I still wrestle with the thought of I'm already losing, and I'm just trying to like find my out.
So,
What I've noticed. Sorry, go ahead, Chris.
so with Naveen, the reason I took it out is because I feel like Strength of a Raging Fire becomes uninkable in a sense because you want to have the being to have value. Like you said, you want to use it to cast songs that banish other opposed characters. Did you come to that same assessment towards the end of the tournament?
I I guess this shows how underperforming he was. I was just using strengths without even considering him. Um, so I guess that shows how he was underperforming for me. Um, if anything, I just try to play him and get some sort of value. Like
Lore.
I could play him. I want lore. Play him. Okay, let's just play a bare necessities with him for fun.
For
So
funsies.
for funsies, yeah. So I kind of take that as a sign as, yeah, he was underperforming for me. So if I think about if he made Strength of a Raging Fire uninkable, um, I could see that happening. Um, in the case where, let's say, they brought my Ariel on turn 3, and I play Naveen, and I want that strength just to use it to help reclaim board. Um, yeah, I could see that happening for sure. It essentially becomes a weaker Zeus, if anything. Yeah.
So I think one of the reasons why Naveen might feel weaker is because you're also lacking that lantern support as well too. Because like being able to jump to turn 3 and being able to play the Naveen there is really helpful. And sometimes you're choked on ink in general when you're trying to play with Naveen. Um, I think that's like maybe that's what's happening. I'm not exactly sure. Could you see Naveen being like Cindy's, for example, like the big Cindy's?
See Naveen being treated as big
No, no,
Zeus.
as in like you swap out Prince Naveen's for big Cindy's.
Yeah, I could see that happening. Like I missed the big Cindy. I found myself winning matches without her. I think the threat of me just having her kind of affects my opponent. Um,
Definitely.
and yeah, I found certain games kind of dragging out where like a Cindy would just close out the game. But for the most part, like it's possible to win without her. Um, I would like her. I guess that's the sign where I should at least have one back. Um, Naveen is on the chopping block, so I'll definitely consider that. Or I missed the fourth Lawrence, but yeah.
Okay, and then we have Rapunzel gifted with healing. Obviously,
She
she allows you to draw some cards.
she's great. Great draw engine. I don't know what else to say except I just always compare her to her ROM. I don't know why her ROM is at 6 health. When I traded decks with my friend and we were just playing each other's deck, I'm playing blue-red for like the very first time. And he's like, why is her ROM 6 health? I can't even Zeus him. And yeah, I don't know what else to say. She's great. She heals. She helps you draw. She quested for 2. She's very beefy. Could take a lot of hits. Card removal is probably like, of course, her weakness. But other than that, yeah, she does great.
I have two questions.
Mm-hmm.
First, how often do you just cast Rapunzel without the healing?
I think
Good
when
question.
I've decided that I'm going to put the pressure or start the clock, I could probably think like maybe a turn or two ahead on is she gonna get me value? Um, when she's not gonna get me value, I think I just need to play her. Yes, she helps you draw cards and heal, but at the end of the day, she's probably gonna get you 2 lore. Do you need this now or not? There's a lot to kind of consider, and it's easy to fixate on trying to maximize a card's value. But sometimes you just need enough value, if that makes sense.
And my second question, do you often forego your 4 ink drop if it's just Rapunzel in hand? Do you just value it that you need to keep it for next few turns?
Hmm. Yeah, yeah. If anything, like, yes, I'm on turn 4. I'm on 4 ink. Um, can I get any value with her? no. If I play her, I'm using 4 ink for essentially a 1/5 that will quest for 2. Can something else do the job? Maybe a Lawrence, he costs less. But yeah.
And now,
I meant actually,
okay.
sorry, when you're in 3 ink, do you
Mhm.
sometimes not ink Rapunzel and just forego your 4th ink? Because, there's times where you have a lot of uninkables and can't
Oh,
really do. Yeah.
yeah, for sure. This is probably when I'm like praying or hoping. Like, I'm like, okay, I could draw something else and ink it. And I know for sure with all these uninkables, go hit something and heal with Rapunzel, and I'm back in. Um, so sorry if I misunderstood that, but yeah.
And now, Shawn, when you say start the clock, we have a lot of new like gamers on this stream. So what do you mean? Do you mean that that's when you're starting the clock when you're starting to race, or you're starting to put pressure? What do you mean by start the clock?
Yeah. So when I say start the clock, at least for my side, I'm saying I'm gonna go aggress the lore count, um, and I think this is when you have to answer to me. Um, it's important to
Okay.
know who's answering who. Um, if you spend all your resources trying to stabilize the board state and stop them, um, you're not necessarily like um, I know it's more nuanced, but you're not necessarily making a game plan to win. You're making a game plan to not lose. And I think there's a clear distinction on that. You're just focusing on how do I just neutralize things, um, but you forget that you need to get 20 lore too. So starting the clock means you're gonna go for that 20 lore. They need to answer to you. How are they gonna do that? What's their game plan on securing that? Sorry if I kind of went off on a tangent there, but
No, we needed to
that's what
know
I mean.
that. Mhm.
Yeah, I
Awesome.
think I've heard it called turning the corner as well too in other spaces as well. So
Gotcha.
Okay. And then we have the queen, big
So
queen.
the queen, she comes in a package with the small queen, the 1-drop queen. Um, she's great. She has a great stat line, especially against red blue. Um, if anything, Fang's crossbow is going to be the one to take her down. But you don't really see that too much, or they need multiple ice blocks. She survives a lot of card removal, so the big Sisu can't really remove her as easily. Brawl can't really remove her as easily. Yes, they could use an ice block and Medusa. However, you want to consider how many Medusas do they run? Did they Medusa something else? Um, she also quested 2. She applies extra damage to your characters to potentially value trade or take down locations. So she spreads out to other matchups. And for the red blue matchup, I've mentioned this before. She does cost 5. She could sing in a way that you probably wanted to use her like Robin Hood. Um, Robin Hood is basically used the same way, I would say, in red versus red blue, but he's more open to, I would say, he's just more vulnerable to getting removed. And in addition, Queen shifts for 2. I think there's 2 times in the entire tournament where I was able to just do turn 1 small queen, turn 2 big queen. Let's spin the wheel and see what happens. And it's definitely gone me some game.
Okay.
Have you done any blowouts with Queen's Effect with the -4/+4?
Yeah,
With
yeah.
this,
Yep. I have done it. I've also cool. There was like a misplay I did in my top 32. I think me and my opponent were both like frazzled. Um, like judges were just honest for like I think one example was I drew and then re-readied everything when the judge stopped me and said you have to re-ready then draw.
Oh,
So
I didn't even know that.
that made me nervous. So like there was a time when I could have quested with queen, removed 4 damage from a Pete, apply it to a daisy, and swing. Get a value trade. However, I was so frazzled, I forgot to ink. Where I wanted to just swing with Daisy for 3 damage and play a Rapunzel. Um, so there were moments when I could have maximized Queen's value in that sense. But for the most part, when I do use her effect, for some reason, it's mainly just for locations and not really for characters. They're not really exerting. I think they really respect the Queen.
Okay, then we have two bare necessities.
Bare necessities. Who was it? It's kind of like a love and hate relationship. I thought I really liked it, but it was underperforming for me. Like even though I know they might be running songs, unless it's a be prepared. I'm just inking it. Um, I just needed the ink. It just wasn't working for me. I think I would need to revisit it. Kind of just take a harder look at when I was using it, why, when it was popping up. Um, I can't give too many details on breaking it down from the event, but bare necessities, generally, you could use it to rip out a quill. Um, you could use it to rip out a be prepared. You could use it to rip out, like, if you think your opponent has some way of calling back, you foresee it before you make a move, you could play it. Yeah, not too much for me to say there.
Do you think it's because there's too much overlap with Pete because they functionally do very similar things?
I could see that. I know Pete stalls it out. It doesn't really remove the card. It just buys you 1 turn. But sometimes when you combine the fact that you have wheel, a whole new wheel, and you kind of count your opponent's discard, kind of count like what are their chances of having X, Y, or Z. Wheel kind of just removes the card for you sometimes, and you don't have to really worry about it as much. So usually, bare necessities come in to your mind at specific moments, and if it's not at that specific moment, I feel that it's not on my radar anymore. So Pete kind of just overshadows it with also being a presence on it.
My conclusion with bare necessities was that it really doesn't have any good matchups except Emerald Steel. But you can use like your songs to banish the Ursula 3 drop or Diablo. But when I played bare necessities against Ruby Sapphire, it was always just too slow because they have multiple ways to ramp, just draw, or you can like discard it, beat prep, they can still Sisu, or still draw to the next one. Did you come to that same conclusion?
I do. I did. I don't know why. Every time I play it, my opponent has like 2 forms of ramp. Or just yesterday, my friend had 2 quills in hand and one jump ahead. I'm like, what's the point of running this card? I think I'm just gonna I should have just inked it. I could have played something else. Yeah, I've been having a love and hate relationship.
Okay, and then we have 4 Let the Storm Rage On and 4 Strength of the Raging Fire. Both of them are huge staples in Amber Steel.
Yeah, those cards are really great cards. Definitely think about not just using them as a way to pop your opponent's cards. Think about how you could use that to heal your hand. Shoot your own Lawrence, shoot one of your own characters, heal with Rapunzel. Think about how you could enable or activate your cards differently. And yeah, these cards are just staples, I would say, in the Steel Song archetype.
Chris, you're a big advocate on making sure, like, doing some damage on your own players as well.
Exactly. And I have a question. So, do you sometimes let the storm rage on turn 2, just hitting your Ursula, even though you're not gonna do Rapunzel for a couple turns, just sort of like get that value, just and use it as a cantrip, just drawing a card?
Oh
for the
yeah,
next turn.
100%, 100%. Sometimes I need to prepare what's going to be happening in turn 3 and 4, and are they going to be doing anything to my Ursula in the first place? Let's say, for example, I don't have a Smee for turn 2. I ended up with an Ursula. they forgoed a Tipo, but I have a Storm. Might as well just storm my Ursula. They're not going to swing with her ROM at all. I'm readying up Rapunzel for when she ends. So definitely I do use Let the Storm Rage On sometimes on turn 2 just to get that extra ink or prepare for future turn.
And now, can you do damage to the same character that you sing with?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Just making sure. And then we also have 3 Along Came Zeus.
3 Along Came Zeus I think is a really good number. I remember starting out with 4. There's times when I've kind of like missed it, and I told myself, what if I just ran 3 Along Came Zeus and World's Greatest Criminal Mind will be my pseudo version of Zeus?
Yeah.
Sometimes you use it on a Maui, a Maleficent Dragon. I wouldn't count Tamatoa because that's definitely out of Zeus. But sometimes you use it on like the same targets. Even the 3-drop, Dragon Sisu.
Mhm.
Sometimes you use a Zeus on that. You could also use World's Greatest Criminal Mind on that if they're
Large enough because you have a big enough hand.
Yep. So yeah, I think 3 is a really good number. I'm always open to testing out between 4 to 2. I think when it comes to steel songs, just always be open with the different song ratios and why people have them.
Okay, and then we have 4 A Whole New World.
That card is a staple, I would say. If you're not really running that card, if you're not running that card and you're running Ariels and you're saying your Steel Song, that's not really Steel Song. There's different ways of playing Amber Steel. I feel that with set 6, didn't get a lot of fun songs to play with. I'm not too sure. Now that I've like the past day or 2, I actually looked at some of the cards, but not too many. But I think it's just a staple. Again, there's different ways of playing Amber Steel. You could incorporate some songs, but the identity shifts a little bit. But yeah.
How do you feel about not playing Ariel? Because there was definitely a deck list that didn't even play Ariel.
I think it's totally fine if your game plan isn't like the traditional Steel Song or what people expect of Steel Song. It's totally fine that you have a different game plan. Definitely, let's say if I was the opponent and I'm like, why aren't you running Ariel? The fact that I have that question, I should kind of reflect on what's their game plan. They're not running Ariel for a reason. They made it this far for a reason. It's not like they're trying to throw the game. I think it's important to kind of think about what the game plan is. If they don't have Ariel, and how that might shift the deck's identity.
And then my other question is there any other cards like Sven you would think about running in this deck?
Then I did test a 2 of.
A 2 of?
A 2 of, like just running 2.
2 of, okay.
So I ran 2 just for testing. I think when I went a more aggressive route with playing Steel Song, again, I've experimented with Wochuck's list. I took out like a Gaston, I've changed some numbers, I added a Sven. It has its moments. I think what you could do is quest, play Sven, re-ready, use that same character, sing a song. Or you could just re-ready, make sure that character's safe. I definitely see them being more for an aggressive approach.
And then my other question would be, do you have any tips for any new beginners just getting into the card game?
Into the card game in general, I would say have fun. Don't make competition your main reason to play Norcana. There's a lot of other things you could be doing if you're looking for competition. I've come from I would say, like semi-pro gaming background, and I found myself thinking like, why do I not enjoy this game anymore? Why am I even playing this game? Play for fun, enjoy the community, really just let yourself develop. Be on your own pace. Don't put yourself in expectations that like will deter you from even playing the game anymore if you're not meeting them. Um, and yeah, just take it one step at a time.
So Shawn, we talked about the whole weekend, day one and day two, right before the finals. So in day one, we caught up and we were 1-0-4.
Yeah.
So basically, your tournament's almost over if you lose one game.
Yeah.
What kept you motivated to obviously win out and then get second place?
It definitely was my friends. I was joking all the time, like, hey, I would have won if I didn't lose. It sounds so profound, but it's really dumb. Like, I would have won if I didn't lose. That's pretty true. I would say, hey,
I like
I'm in
that.
the comfort zone. The 104, I'm in the comfort zone. I did this on purpose. I'm in the comfort zone. So I was nervous. However, usually I'm not nervous. I think I'm used to playing at higher level gaming competition. It's just been a while, so I had to be used to the unknown again. So it's about kind of revisiting that feeling. One thing I did to kind of assess how I could play the next matches was one, talk to my friends on like just venting out, let them hear you out. They kind of keep you level-headed on, are you being kind of biased? Like, let's be a bit logical here. Don't kind of do some dumb move just because you think they're going to be doing this. Another thing was I reassessed whether I wanted to go first or second. I've heard people say you should go first. And I'm glad I'm bringing this up. Maybe you could kind of chime in here. I decided to go second whenever I won the die roll. And I've only won the die roll like twice. I always lose the die roll. It's a joke with my friends too. But I told myself like, hey, Steel Song molds differently depending on your match. I could be wrong with other decks, but when they mold on the blind, it's kind of similar to how they usually mold for certain matchups too. Maybe they prioritize one card more than the other, but for the most part, it's the same. So I chose to go second, and one thing I realized was, do I want to play Ursula against Red Blue or Smee? And every time I like played in Ursula, and they're like, oh, like this is against Red Blue players in general. I find out they're playing Red Blue, I'm like, oh snap, I chose the wrong thing. I could have like played a Smee, I could have set up Rapunzel, I could have done all this. That was really bothering me. So going second, I kind of opted to keep Smee and Ursula. I wasn't afraid to keep a Let the Storm Rage On. I acknowledged I had an extra card. One card could be used as ink. One card could potentially pop a Diablo. The opponent playing maybe green steel, yes, they might have an Ursula, or they don't. Sometimes they're prioritizing a morph, and I could take an opportunity and stop them there. So I took going second to my advantage, having that extra padding. So when I went first, I get to put my best foot forward. Now I know what I'm up against, and now their back is against the wall. Hopefully that answered your question.
Yeah, I actually approach the best of two format same exact way. I view aggro, and rogue should always be on the draw game, because you may score wins because your opponent's molding it improperly, and then game two with perfect information, you mold it perfectly, you can just out aggro them. Your rogue strategy will show off its strategy, but with other decks like Ruby Sapphire that have very consistent game plan, they don't really lose too many percentage points from going first or second. But I feel like we gain percentage point on game one if my opponent mulligans it correctly, or they don't have enough answers for an early game.
Exactly.
You can sneak away.
Exactly. I'm glad you kind of like confirmed that for me. It was something I was picking up on the spot. So great to hear.
And another thing I really love that your attitude was really like you level-headed. I've done poorly in early rounds and won out. I feel like a lot of players who are always on the bubble, they have poor attitude. They don't check their ego at the door. They're always like angry, blaming their opponents. But you were self-reflective and see how can I become better. I could have won that game. I messed up. Not my opponent got lucky. They drew better. So I really think you're going to have a really promising future in Morcana, and you're going to do some damage in Continentals because of that attitude.
Thank you, thank you. Yeah, definitely. I would say, like that's the mindset I took. I know at higher levels, people know each other more. They talk to each other more. I was just someone who really enjoyed the game.
I love that.
Yes, I have seen the Luxcana YouTube channel and saw your guys' deck profiles. I listened to why you guys play certain cards, think about what works for me, what doesn't, or if anything, test it out, experiment. The 20 Lord Discord or any other Discords, I'm a lurker there. Life gets in the way. I can't always message, but I definitely appreciate everyone's contributions. I think people say things for a reason. Maybe I don't necessarily agree with it, but it has some truth for them for some reason. So maybe I should try to understand that, apply that to how I could play the game. I definitely appreciate that information is out there. So for those listening, like information's out there. Take your time to just review what works for you and develop as a player. Um, yeah, Chris Oyola, like he puts information out there. I definitely put like a lot of weight in his words. Definitely like there's maybe some things I picked up and I haven't shared with, but I hope to kind of contribute to that open a lot of information soon to help other players.
Okay, I'm just gonna ask the chat if they have any questions, and then we can see. Hey guys, do you guys have any questions for Shawn? They have to type it out, so sometimes it takes a second or two.
No problem.
Mm-hmm.
Chris, do you guys have any last minute questions for Shawn?
What is your thoughts on Steel Song Set 6?
So before I looked into cards, you told me that like looking a little wonky. So yesterday I looked at just a few cards, not all of them. I did not see a lot of songs that popped out to me. If anything, I did not see a lot of songs. I think there were only 2 songs I saw. So I'm like, maybe other colors get support. Steel Song's a strong deck. It just depends on did they get enough support to overtake it. But I am open to just playing Steel Song in a different way. I think there's something to kind of look into.
Did you see that
Especially
one
with the
card? Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Oh, no, go ahead.
That one card where you just gain 1 lore?
That one card where I just gained 1 lore.
Yeah, it was just posted today.
Oh, I didn't. Can you,
Let's see if I
guess
could find
elaborate?
it.
I can recite that fact.
Okay.
It's an Amber action, not a song. Chosen character gains 1 lore this turn only, which is a 1-ink.
Oh, good job.
Oh,
Yes, good job. That's the name of it.
Oh, good job. Let me. Chosen character gets +1 lore this turn. I don't want to just shrug it off. No, I don't want to say that because I do know there's a lot of potential for characters to just ready up. And for some reason, the first card that jumps to my mind is You Came Back.
Oh, I love that card.
I just remember that card.
I saw the
it's
Enchanted.
I really like Ditch. And I know some people play green, yellow, aggro. And You Came Back doesn't stop you from questing again. I know it could be in an aggro build. I know maybe for blue, they always like their lucky dime. They always like to kind of like race up in lore in some shape or form. But that's my initial thoughts. Sorry if I can't give too much on it.
No, that's okay. Any other questions, guys?
No, I'm good.
Shawn, do you want to give any shout outs?
Yeah, I would like to give a shout out to my girlfriend, my friends at Locals. They're really supportive. We are always joking about like, you would have won if you didn't lose. It became a meme. I think some of them left the Seahawks game just to come and support me.
That's awesome.
And they walked like 30 minutes into the rain, came in drenched. I'm like, this is the first time I'm like kind of getting this kind of support. It's new to
Oh,
me. I really appreciated it. And definitely, I'm saying it again. Chris is really helpful. He's a indirect mentor. We haven't really like talked in terms of like coaching or anything, but what he kind of puts out there, kind of changed my frame of mind on how to think about a card game. I haven't really played a card game in like years, probably 8 years, and when I did, it was just Yu-Gi-Oh for like 3 months. Um, but I did play in high school. I love Destiny Heroes. I like Diamond Dude just because he gives me that thrill of looking what's at the top. But re-entering card games, Chris has kind of like helped acclimate my mindset and approach it differently. So yeah, I would thank Chris, and for sure anyone else like I've met as an opponent. I think opponents make a world of difference in how you kind of play your games. Times when it's just really silent, and I'm like, long game, a long quiet game, and it's kind of awkward. But yeah, friendly opponents, and just definitely any content creators who are open with putting info out to help other players. So this includes you guys. I did watch the Luxcana YouTube channel deck profiles,
thank you.
the DLCs before.
Okay. Well, thank you for coming on, and thank you guys for watching, and thank you guys, Chris and Ducky, for coming on too to support and ask the questions.